Hey, hope you're doing okay. It is Thursday already, the 28th of April, 2022, Notcast episode 196, and today I'm going to be talking about one of my favourite albums of all time. You will have seen this previously, if you've seen all the way back, episode 19, back in the darker times of 2020, when I talked about my 20 favourite albums of all time. This is The Wedding Present's 6th album, Tank Fountain, although I think of it as their 9th, because I think of Tommy and the Hit Parade and Minnie as albums. So this makes it number 9. This was released in February, 14th of February 2005, Valentine's Day. Probably a very appropriate day to release what I think is one of the greatest albums about human relationships ever. It's one of the greatest breakup albums. It's one of the greatest falling in love albums as well, because as John Peel said, you might think that you might not think that the Boy Gedge has written some of the finest love songs of all time, but I am right and you are wrong. This is, I think, just one of the finest albums about relationships that's ever been recorded or released. And yes, I've heard a lot of albums over the years, as I'm sure you've probably worked out on the fact that I still haven't run out of bands or albums to talk about. So the story for this album is a little bit complicated. Isn't everything a little bit complicated? But the album was recorded as the 4th studio record by the other band Cinerama, which featured David Gedge, Simon Cleave, formerly of The Wedding Present, Terry DeCastro on bass, and I think Kari Pavlova on drums. And it was during the recording of the album that the band realised that perhaps they were turning back into The Wedding Present. So as evidenced in and written in the book Sleeve Notes by David Gedge, where David talks about one song from each of his albums in detail, the band were recording one of their many Peel sessions when they were known as Cinerama. And here is the Peel Sessions box set by Cinerama, when the engineer, I think his name is Miti Adhikari, a name I've seen on the back of many Peel Sessions albums, said to David something along the lines of, "Why are you calling yourself Cinerama? This is The Wedding Present." I think that put the kernel of the idea in David's mind. And as David said, during the recording of Take Fountain, they were listening to some rough mixes of one of the tracks in the car. Him and Simon were talking, and David said, "Maybe we should call this band The Wedding Present." And Simon agreed, as did Terry. Carrie, I believe, thought it was a bit of a backwards step to take the name of the previous band, having not been a member of The Wedding Present. And he did leave the band not long after that, but finished the recording of the record. The Peel session in question, the one which started the very kernel of the idea around it, should this band be called Cinerama or The Wedding Present, is on this box set, the Cinerama Complete Peel Sessions, which was released in 2007. And this features 3 CDs, all of which have been released previously, but this time in a box set with a booklet. Now, I talked about this particular one on the previous episode when I talked about Cinerama, but it's important to know there's an overlap between Cinerama and The Wedding Present. The two bands coexisted for a period of time. And on the Peel Sessions 3 by Cinerama, no idea whether this is available cheaply or at all anymore, this is where the lineup that became The Wedding Present started playing songs from Take Fountain for the first time. And the approach that the band always took to Peel Sessions, by the way, was always very much around using radio sessions as a way of demoing the songs. You know, they'd play the songs in the rehearsal studio, they'd work them out, they'd play them at a radio session, then they'd have a studio recording of the track, which is considerably cheaper than paying for your own studio recording. And of course, you do get paid for doing a radio session. Maybe not a huge amount of money, but you do. I heard that the band, the Frank and Walters, worked out that when they were paid £150 per person per Peel session, is that if they had a 4th member, then they would get an extra £150. So they had a 4th member who played triangle on one song. His contribution solely was to go ting at the start of the song, and for that was paid £150 by Her Majesty's British Broadcasting Corporation in, I think, 1993. So Peel Sessions there were effectively the Wedding Presents version of demos, and almost all of them got a release. Now, John Peel Sessions 3, this album, features one live session and 2 studio sessions recorded in 2003. Now, these are essential parts of the Wedding Present story. This is where you can tangibly hear the wedding present reforming in front of your very eyes without even noticing it. So the second session on this disc features 4 songs. I Am From Further North Than You, also known as Edinburgh. Larry's, which is one of the B-sides from the Take Fountain period. On Off, which is a Cinerama B-side. And the cover version of Tattoos, All the Things She Said. The second studio session, features Always the Quiet One, Mars Sparkles Down on Me, Nickels and Dimes, which became one of the B-sides, and the cover version of Groove Jet, If This Ain't Love. And I got to tell you, the cover version of Groove Jet is one of my favourite pieces of music of all time. The band turned Groove Jet inside out and turned it into this heavy, droning guitar epic with this incredible intro that the band later used as the template for their so-called comeback single, Interstate 5. And it was during the recording of Take Fountain that the band decided that they were going to change their name and they were going to become the Wedding Present again. And they released the album, as I said, in February 2005. And the first kind of fruits from the album were the single Interstate 5. It was only released as a CD single. And got to the highfalutin place of number 64 on the UK charts. Although reforming the band, although the band hadn't actually officially split, but reactivating the band and putting that name back out there opened a lot of doors. So in the sleeve notes book, David said that working as Cinerama, the band were playing smaller rooms, sometimes to 200 people a night. They were getting lower fees. Nobody was getting rich out of it. David had used his savings to keep the band going. And often if you're the guy that's running the band and the band isn't making a huge amount of money, the guy that runs the band is the last guy to get paid. Everyone gets paid a certain amount of money, but then the guy that's in charge of everything is the one that has to live with the profit or the loss. And if there's a loss, then you're working for free. And that's the reason why I think maybe reforming the Wedding Present was both a commercial and a creative decision. The sound of Cinerama, the starting off sound that's heavily influenced by things like Italian pop and Ennio Morricone soundtracks, had drifted back to the sound of the Wedding Present, a natural evolution, so to speak, which was both Cinerama and the Wedding Present at the same time. The core songs were still exactly the same. They are snapshots of think bubbles from people in the middle of relationships, thinking the things that sometimes they dare not say, narrating their own life. And then it's spot welded to a soundtrack that is generally made up out of expansive guitars and it's really very traditional indie rock, but smarter and better and deeper. This is Interstate 5 is one of my favourite Wedding Present songs. It's in my top 4. The other 3 will be Dalliance, Bewitched, and the cover version of Groove Jet, by the way. I'm very, very fond of all of their material. I grew into the Wedding Present. This is the period where I massively fell in love with the band. When Sea Monsters came out in 1991, I was 17 or 18 years old. At the time Sea Monsters came out, I was in the midst of my first relationship, which ended disastrously, not through my choosing. And the things which he was singing about at that point had no meaning to me. I had no understanding of what those things were except as an abstract concept. By the time that I got to Interstate 5 and Take Fountain, I'd had my heart broken at least once, twice actually, I think it's fair to say. I've been through a number of relationships. I was just about to be married. I was just about to become a father when Take Fountain came out. So for me, I understood, the lyricism of the album. All of the songs on the album, to me at least, are written from the point of view of a man, not a boy. A lot of songs write about relationships from the concept of being 17 or 18. The kind of absolutely dogshit lyrics about being dumped that you would get in Shed 7. She left me on a Friday and she ruined my weekend. Boo hoo, fucking who. That type of stuff. Awful lyrics written by people that don't know how to feel emotions, let alone express them. And if you are in Shed 7, that song is appalling, by the way, really terrible. Whereas songs like Interstate 5, I'm From Further North Than You, Always the Quiet One, Perfect Blue, these are songs that are written from a mature perspective as an adult, talking about relationships. And the path of love is never straight and narrow, it's never clear. I mean, obviously, I've got some of my friends that have married the person that they first started going out with at the age of 17. And that's wonderful, you know, and I'm jealous because they will never experience the thing which a lot of people have experienced, which I've experienced, which is feeling that you are going to grow old with someone and finding out that's not the case. That's a really awful kind of situation to be in, the moment of realization when you think the past 2 years, 3 years, however many years it's been, you know. And I was in the longest relationship I have been in, apart from the one that I'm currently in, was 7 years. And you get to the moment where you kind of realize this isn't going to work, and you kind of think, have I just wasted 7 years of my life, 7 years of memories with somebody that I'm not going to be able to talk about those things with them ever again, you know. And the process of separation that happens around that can be quite brutal. And that, you know, I always remember the last moment when I was a couple with somebody or who was of significance to me. So, you know, like the last day that we had as a couple together, the last day of our acquaintance, as Sinead O'Connor said. And those were the type of things and the type of feelings and the type of emotions that Gedge was writing about in the whole of this album, starting off from Interstate 5 all the way through to the end of Perfect Blue. These are love songs written by a mature adult who approaches love as a commitment and a responsibility, but at the same point as something between two flawed human beings that sometimes can go disastrously wrong. Interstate 5 is one of the best breakup songs of all time, but it isn't a breakup song, because what it's about is about somebody that's in that kind of middle ground. There's an element of it, I can't stay with somebody and I can't go away from somebody. And it uses the title Interstate 5, which, by the way, is the motorway that runs from Canada through America down to Mexico, as a metaphor for escape. And it deals with things like toxic masculinity, the expectation of what somebody thinks a man should be. There's that line that Gedge sings around is, you know, I guess that, you know, that's what people expected men to be. Normal, innocent men. Just normal, innocent men. A lyric around, you know, toxic masculinity and the expectations of what the male or the female dynamic is within a relationship. And there's about repression and fear, and there's almost like the asymmetrical nature of a relationship, because sometimes you meet somebody and think, oh, fantastic, amazing, you know, I've met this person. They're not looking at it the way you're looking at it. You may be looking at it and thinking, I might have met somebody really important. They're thinking, oh, I might get a bang out of this, or, you know, whatever the phrase might be. And there's that line where he sings, you know, I thought that sex was all that you needed. Now, it's around two people going into a relationship and having different views of what that relationship is going to be. Someone's thinking, I might fall in love with you, which, by the way, is the name of a wedding present song, which has just been released on the 24-song set. And the other person is thinking, I guess this might just be, you know, one night. One night in heaven, as M people would have said it. There's a sense of, and this is underpinned in the music, by the way, is there's a sense of tension and drama and release, and an ominous sense of doom. And I think the best wedding present songs, Dalliance Bewitched, Interstate 5, have a sense of almost like a release, tension and release, which is really important, because there's that bit where all the guitars kick off, happens in Dalliance, happens in Bewitched, happens in Interstate 5, where it's glorious as you have that moment of almost like a sonic orgasm exploding in your ears. Make no mistake about it, Interstate 5 is one of my very favourite songs of all time, and it's a fascinating song. It's got a dark and deep lyric in it that deals with relationships in a way that a lot of bands wouldn't have the perception to deal with. Interstate 5. And if you, I think the albums are probably not albums that have the lyrics on it, which is actually quite a shame because the lyrics are generally that, you know, Gedge writes amazing song lyrics. And I'm going to have to check that lyric in Interstate 5 now because I do want to use the exact phrasing. Hang on. So as you probably worked out, I've got my laptop open, I've got the lyrics down here, which makes it better for lighting. This is, of course, very much low rent, one take, me talking to the camera as I go along. There's the third verse, and each verse, by the way, is only 2 lines. So the whole of Interstate 5 is 12 lines, which is very economical, which, considering the song is 10 minutes long, is quite surprising. But there's the third verse, he goes, "Is it sexist to say that I thought just boys were meant to behave in this way?" And there's a line in there which, I mean, to me it kind of says that obviously, you know, equalities and perceptions around what gender might be or how that might affect certain behaviours is it sexist to say that? But at the same point, recognising that that's the view that lots of people have of males, is that they would be more driven by certain types of behaviour. But, you know, it's flipped the traditional kind of approach, or perhaps the traditional thoughts that people might have around what would constitute, you know, how a man would act or how a boy would act. And then it goes, well, you know, I wanted something more. I wanted love. I wanted more than just one night, I think is the lyric in the song. And that's the start of the album. And by the way, the Take Fountain album, Interstate 5, on UK pressings and, well, I think the American record label insisted that the long intro to Interstate 5 was called On Ramp, or had a different title as a separate song. On Ramp being, of course, when you're on the ramp that's going into the motorway, and the motorway being Interstate 5, and the metaphor about travelling on a journey. So the point of the journey, as Rush said, is not to arrive. But Interstate 5 is one of my very favourite songs, and it runs 10 minutes in total, because the song itself is about 6 minutes long, and then there's an extended instrumental coda, the last kind of flourish of Cinerama, which has kind of like heavily Ennio Morricone inspired strings, trumpets, kind of harpsichord, banjo, all those type of instruments, which generally sound like Cinerama's expanded lineup. And it's Interstate 5 is one of my favourite songs of all time. It really is. You know, I remember the first time I saw The Wedding Present playing it, I was in a corridor and I was just having a quick chat with somebody. I'm like, they're playing Interstate 5. I know I haven't seen you for this. I have to go and watch them play this song. And it was, you know, a wonderful experience. And I've seen them play it many times since. And one of the great things about seeing The Wedding Present live is that they change their set list around. They never play the same set, so you don't get the same 14 hit singles. You know, there's no guarantee of you getting any particular song on any particular gig unless they advertise it as playing a particular album in full, at which point you probably will get the songs on the album, and you'll get them in the order that they should be on the album, which makes the Sea Monsters shows and the Take Fountain show, which is due to happen this year at Brighton, quite heavy indeed, I imagine. So the first song is around, you know, the start of a flawed relationship. The second song on the album, well, the second proper song on the album is Always the Quiet One. And Always the Quiet One is, I think it was a single. No, it wasn't actually. Maybe it should have been a single. Is a fantastically economical lyric. It's wonderful, elegant. You know, you could read those lyrics. You know, that's a fabulous piece of poetry. You know, David Gedge's lyrics are very, very underrated. And Always the Quiet One is kind of about a fear of connection and a miscommunication between two human beings. And if you've been in more than one relationship, you will probably have experienced at some point a moment where you think, the words that have left my mouth are not the words that have landed in that person's head. I mean, I remember very definitely having a conversation with somebody where I was going, look, this I think it's the end for this relationship. And they saw it as me saying that it was time for a pause and a rethink, and maybe to come at it from a different angle, where I was like, this is not, I don't see a future with you, you know. and that caused some complications further down the line. But I definitely remember it was kind of like I was trying to be diplomatic in a "you're dumped" conversation, and maybe I shouldn't have been diplomatic about it. But Always the Quiet One is a fabulous lyric about, somebody, and accidentally my hand touched yours, and all that type of stuff. But at the same point, going, if I was braver, if I was stronger, if I was less scared, if I was less repressed, maybe I would have been able to say something to change that dynamic, to let that people know that I might be interested in the concept or the context of a relationship. And again, that kind of also ties in a little bit with Interstate 5. Interstate 5 having that theory of miscommunication between two humans, and Always the Quiet One following that up with perhaps a different kind of approach. But again, also saying that communication and the fear of communication and the way in which people communicate is really, really complex and really difficult. Um, the fourth song on the album, I'm From Further North Than You. This is a classic, by the way, one of my favourite ones. I frequently quote the title because I am from further north than a number of people who are my friends, and certainly people that I have been in relationships with. I'm not going to think about how many, but definitely that. Yeah, most of my major relationships in the past have been with people where I'm from further north than them. So no, I'm not from the south. I'm from further north than you. Not suggesting I'm in a relationship with YouTube or you. Sorry to break your heart like that. Now, this is I'm From Further North From You was the last single that hit the charts, I think, for quite some time. Actually, it made number 34 in the charts, pop pickers. Here is the 7-inch single of I'm From Further North Than You, backed with that track which I've mentioned before, Nickels and Dimes. And I'm From Further North Than You has just a wonderful lyric. It was originally called Edinburgh. The reason being is because that was where the song was, in David Gedge's mind, that's where the song happened. And that's where the video, by the way, for the song takes place. And the video for the song is like a live action video, but it's stylized into being a comic book style where people's thoughts and the lyrics become thought bubbles coming out of people's heads, and it's set in Edinburgh, and it works really well, and it's just a nice, funny, sweet video about a couple that are arguing, and you think the couple in the video are the two people that are in the relationship, but then transpires they're not actually, and they bump into each other, and maybe something else happens. Now, I always think about a number of things that come with I'm From Further North Than You. The first one is obviously that great quote by Doctor Who, Christopher Eccleston, lots of planets have a north. They do. Lots of planets have a north, and I'm From Further North Than You. But this was released before that happened, I think. The second one is that if you come from somewhere and you then don't live there, there's a sense of belonging that only exists in your mind when you are in the place where you come from. So I grew up in Birmingham, and I don't live in Birmingham anymore. And when I go back to Birmingham, there's a sense of coming home, even if that place isn't home anymore. And Birmingham stopped being home for me because Birmingham changed for me. So even though it felt like home, I felt like I was actually being forced to leave home. And so when I left Birmingham, it was because Birmingham no longer felt like home to me. But the other part of that is there's a sense of pride about where you come from. So I may not be the biggest fan in the world of Birmingham, but if anyone wants to diss Birmingham, I will fight you, because Birmingham invented Led Zeppelin and heavy metal and Judas Priest and the telephone and all other kinds of amazing things that have changed the world, including, I think, the cure for smallpox. So without Birmingham, the world would be a far worse place, and nobody would listen to Black Sabbath because Black Sabbath wouldn't exist, and Black Sabbath are amazing. So I'm From Further North Than You is a song about that sense of pride about where you come from, but also that sense of not belonging anywhere. So like even where I live now, which is quite a way away from Birmingham, it feels like home, but at the same point, it's not the place where I grew up. So I don't have the relationships that, if I grew up here, I would have known the kids from school. I would see them walking around the town. I would talk to them. I'd have, whereas my friends live all over the world, as opposed to, I've got friends that I know that live here, but they don't live, I've known them for 15, 20 years. I've not known them for 40 something years, And I'm from further north than you is just, again, it's a brilliant song, and the lyrics are erudite, and they're perceptive, and they're smart, and they're just wonderful. And God, I wish more bands put more time thinking about the words, as opposed to, being Def Leppard and thinking about what it sounds like. Love is like a bomb, like you couldn't get it on, and a living like a lover, like a redathon. And I'm like, what does that mean? That makes Fronts 242's Manhunter seem like Philip Larkin's Or Bait. Although I've probably mispronounced the name of that particular poem by Philip Larkin. And then we have Disc 1, Side 2. Although the vinyl version of Take Fountain didn't get released until 2015, so strictly speaking, I am cheating on the wedding present, and I should bring out the CD. So here's the CD instead. This is the authentic version from 2005. With its brutalist imagery, which has become a trademark of the wedding presents kind of approach these days, is a kind of taciturn, difficult, almost austere approach in their visual presentation. Mars Sparkles Down, one of the songs that was played by Cinerama on the Bill sessions, I think, is it's such a sad song as well. And I have memories that every time I hear this song, I think about memories that I have. There's a line about, you've got your new boyfriend and he's perfect in every way, and how can there's this line about how can I just stand there when his hand, how can I shake his hand when it's been all over your skin? And there's no way that like a 17-year-old could write that lyric. It'd be impossible. It'd be like, boo-hoo baby, I hate you. It wouldn't be like, how can I shake his hand after it's been all over your skin? And I've had the good pleasure to stay friends with a couple of people that I've been in relationships with, and they're wonderful human beings, and it just didn't work, But it doesn't mean that I don't think the world of them. And sometimes, you're not meant to be with somebody, but then you still see them around, and I don't know, you see them at shows or train stations or God knows what else. And you meet their new person and the person that they're married with, and they're going to have they've got children with them and everything. And at one point you go, yeah, this guy's lovely, and I totally get why. But on the other hand, you're going, that's the world that maybe I could have experienced. And you have to try and remember to be the bigger man in this. It's a great line by the Sisters of Mercy in the song I Was Wrong, about loving your fellow man, but I'll damned if I'll love yours. The same kind of approach around, it's sometimes it takes a while after the relationship has ended for the feelings to go away. And how can I shake his hand after it's just been all over your skin? It's a weird and unusual lyric about meeting your ex-lover's new lover. The type of thing that if Nick Cave wrote it, he'd be stoning them to death. If Eminem wrote it, he'd be chainsawing them and then throwing them in a car off the bridge into the river. If Slayer had written it, it would be a medical dissection of how the head was dissected from the body. Or Carcass, actually, because I think Carcass, the death metal band Carcass, do check their lyrics for medical accuracy, or at least they did at one point. Those type of things. But it's a lovely, sad song that kind of, and the whole concept about the album, it kind of follows the relationship in a narrative structure. Interstate 5 about the start and end of a relationship, always the quiet one about not quite having the relationship that you want. I'm from further north than you, looking back at what was perhaps a fling. Mars Sparkles Down about meeting somebody that's that person's new lover and you not being. But there's a resolution as it goes through the album. It kind of starts with it goes from a breakup to the start of something new at the end of the album. And it's a wonderful song cycle, actually, really optimistic, the way in which the lyrics are structured. And the sixth track on the album is Ringway To Seatac. Now, the more observant of you will have noticed I'm wearing a wedding present t-shirt. This is, in fact, a diagram of the Seattle airport. I looked it up with the various terminals, and on the back it gives you the other terminals at Seatac Airport. So this is the Ringway To Seatac t-shirt, by the way, and the wedding present do fabulous t-shirts in their designs. They're really good at it. And some bands, I don't buy their t-shirts, even though I love them, because their t-shirt designs are dog shit. Sorry, bands, it is true. It was the CD single for Ringway To Seatac, and again, backed with Shivers and American Tan. And Shivers, by the way, is one of the greatest wedding present songs that there is. Why it was only a B-side still baffles me to this day. Just a wonderful, wonderful song that I wish more people knew, although it is the instrumental music the band play at the end of their show. And Ringway To Seatac has this gorgeously sad line about walking back to your car was the lowest point of my life so far. And I kind of alluded to it earlier. So I've been in some major relationships, and I remember something that nobody else remembers, that nobody else will ever have seen, which is the last moment that I looked at them, and that was the end of the relationship. I knew that was the last day that we had as a couple, or the last time that we were intimate, or whatever it was. And normally it ends with somebody walking away, walking to get a bus or a plane or a car or a train. So walking back to your car was, the lowest point of my life so far. Around the moment when that person, it comes to a close and that person walks out of your life. And I remember very distinctly the bus stop, the airport, the train station, the stairs, the door, for those relationships. The moment when I walked into a room and we were a couple, and I came out of the room and we weren't. So that moment is something that sticks in my mind. And every time I hear this song, I think about that moment for 2 or 3 specific people, I think. And it's a thing that unless you've been through that, you wouldn't think that. Now the lyric writing which Gedge has, I think, is quite similar to the songs I write. I kind of explain why, because it's extrapolations and explorations about ideas and possibilities in relation to relationships. And you talk to your friends, or assuming you've got friends, it's completely understandable if you think I haven't, but assuming you've got friends and you talk to them and they talk about, some of the things which are going on in their life, they split up with somebody, or perhaps when you were 17 and, your mate's girlfriend met another boy, all those type of things. And you think, okay, so if you're 32 and you split up with somebody, or that somebody that you're with, that you think you might grow old with, actually has fallen out with you and they haven't realised it yet, all those type of things, you kind of go through, your imagination kind of explores, what would happen in this? What would happen in that? What would happen if this happened? How would I feel if this was the case? What emotions would I be feeling if suddenly the future that I thought I was going to have would be cut in half, and the path would go that way instead of that way, and the path would go there on my own as opposed to there with somebody else. Those are the kind of lyrics that Gedge is writing about. These are observational explorations around human relationships and tragedy and those type of things, in a way in which not many. I mean, honestly, Ed Sheeran is rubbish as a songwriter compared to David Gedge. Now, I suspect I'm preaching to the converted, and you will agree with me here, because otherwise, nothing in the records I've talked about would make you think, oh, that guy really loves Ed Sheeran. And you're absolutely right, I really don't. But his songwriting, I think, is quite shallow compared to the songwriting that we've got from David Lewis Gedge here on Take Fountain. Now, the next track is Don't Touch That Dial, which is subtitled the Pacific Northwest version. Don't Touch That Dial has the unique quality of being the only song that was released both by Cinerama and by The Wedding Present. Here is the CD single for Don't Touch That Dial by Cinerama, which is backed with, by the way, On Off, which also appeared on the Cinerama compilation, the radio sessions one. So some of the songs, On Off became a Cinerama song and a Cinerama B-side. Mars Sparkles Down on Me became a Wedding Present album track, and they were both written at the same time by the same musicians. So Don't Touch That Dial is the only song that was released by both bands, but also it's the only song that has both versions of the song released by both bands. There was a compilation album which is called The Search for Paradise, that was released in America. This features the B-sides from the Take Fountain album, 3 previously unreleased acoustic tracks, and a DVD. And the DVD features the Cinerama video for Don't Touch That Dial, but it's on a wedding present release, and there's no reference to it not being a wedding present track, by the way. So Don't Touch That Dial is the only song that was released in the same form, the same version, the same mix, as far as I can tell, by two different bands, even though it's exactly the same. Not that anybody minds, but you can see that's the moment where the transition occurred, is the Don't Touch That Dial single, the Peel Sessions. It's followed up with a song called It's For You, which is around, living with the shadows of past and other lovers around there. And then there's three songs at the end of the album. There's Larry's, Queen Anne, which, by the way, is a district in Seattle, and Perfect Blue. And Larry's is a very interesting lyric. It's about seeing somebody that reminds you of somebody that you once loved. Now, this happened to me recently. I was at a train station coming back from work, and somebody from behind looked just like somebody that I once loved, and it was really weird because I was like, that looks just like, and that person did not look like, I've never seen anybody that looked quite like that person before. But I was like, that person looks like, and there's no way they could be here, and of course they can't be, and they weren't, because it was somebody who looked like them from a certain angle. Much like the Nick Cave song is from a certain angle and from a certain light. I could look quite handsome, although obviously I'm misquoting the song there. It's the same kind of experience about seeing somebody who looks like somebody who reminds you of somebody, and you kind of going, but it's that kind of experience. And then the last two songs, Queen Anne and Perfect Blue, are a resolution. So it's at the point where actually those last two songs are about meeting somebody and the happily ever after part of it. Perfect Blue is the holy grail of wedding present songs. It's the songs that I think most wedding present fans would like the band to play more often than they do. I've seen them play it live a number of times. It is really good. I don't know why they don't play it more often. I just don't go on Twitter and badger the band about it, saying, put Perfect Blue in the set list. But if it was up to me, wedding present shows would be 3.5 hours long, like Cure shows, except knowing the average length of a wedding present song would mean that actually the set lists would be about 75 songs. An average wedding present set list is about 80 minutes and 22 songs, by the way. Those songs are short, economical, they do not outstay their welcome. Whereas a Cure show that's 3.5 hours long is only 49 songs, by the way. I'm getting cheated, or not, as the case might be. And that is Take Fountain, the 6th/9th wedding present album, one of my favourite albums of all time. The album, by the way, takes its name from a question. Betty Davis was asked on a quiz show, what's the best way for an aspiring actress to get to Hollywood? And she said, Take Fountain. Take Fountain being a road that leads towards Hollywood, Fountain Avenue. And I think the whole of the album, really, you can look at that and you go, yes, it's a very American album in terms of its name, in terms of some of the lyrical references that we've got in there, the references to Seatac, Seattle, Queen Anne being a district of Seattle as well, Take Fountain itself, Larry's being a bar, I think is in Toronto, for example. But it's around fulfilling your destiny, around what you want to achieve with your life and making that happen. And the narrative of the album is about, well, the thing I want to achieve with my life is I want to have a successful, happy relationship. And it kind of charts, the death of one set of dreams and the start of another. So there you have it. A fabulous, fabulous record. I love this to bits. It's one of the best albums of all time. As I mentioned, there are a number of single releases and other bits and bobs that came out at the same time, so we'll go through those in the final few minutes. The second single from the album, I've shown you the 7-inch already, is I'm From Further North Than You. Here's the CD single, and one of the most dreaded formats in musical history, the DVD single. This features an acoustic version of Perfect Blue, the video for Interstate 5, I'm From Further North Than You. This is the single that's backed with a track called Rekindling and The Girl with the Curious Smile. Not songs that are played live too often. Now, all of those were put together on this American-only compilation CD and DVD. This version, of course, has a deletion hole through the barcode. This features the A's and B's, so it features the single version of Interstate 5, the B-sides, Bad Thing, Snapshots, Rekindling, The Girl with the Curious Smile, Nickels and Dimes, a Clee remix of I'm From Further North Than You, which I think was only a download track, Shivers, American Tan, and 3 acoustic versions at the end being acoustic recordings of I'm From Further North Than You, Interstate 5, and Ringway To Seatac. This is an essential part. If you love Take Fountain, this is effectively, you put this next to it and it's the expanded version of the album. So you've got all the B-sides. Obviously you also need the Peel sessions, Cinerama Peel sessions, Wedding Present Peel sessions. We'll get to those in a minute. But there's plenty of extra material there. The DVD features the promos for Don't Touch That Dial, Interstate 5, I'm From Further North Than You, Ringway To Seatac, and the acoustic version of Perfect Blue, filmed in Amsterdam, by the way. And it's a lovely acoustic version. The band did some other work. They toured a lot. They obviously did the Ringway To Seatac single. Hello, the dreaded CD single here, backed with the lovely Shivers. And then they recorded and filmed a couple of DVDs, which I've forgotten to get. I'll be back soon. Here's the first of those DVDs. It is called Drive, and it is about 65 minutes long, filmed on the American tour, the first Wedding Present American tour in about 10 years, in 2005. So it's a single camera camcorder footage. The live footage is taken from multiple shows, as you can tell by the band members changing t-shirts and things like that. But this has got about 8 or 9 live songs in it, which sound amazing, by the way. And a huge chunk of in-between song backstage footage and on the road tour documentary type stuff. So it's actually got 16 songs filmed live during the tour, which is about an hour of footage plus about 20 minutes of backstage stuff, so it comes to 75 minutes in total. This is probably quite affordable and quite easy to get, but DVDs don't sell huge amounts. They didn't then, they don't now. So it might be more difficult to find. This is perhaps the more obvious and well known. The Wedding Present, An Evening with the Wedding Present, live at the Sheperds Bush Empire in November 2005. This was the first time I'd seen the Wedding Present, this show. I didn't enjoy it because there was a tube strike. I got stuck, and it was also the last show I saw when I lived in London, because I moved out of London on the Thursday after this show. This show was on the Sunday night. This is 22 songs filmed live on one of the last UK show of the Take Fountain tour. And as I said before, you can't rely on the Wedding Present playing any particular song that you want on any particular gig. So perhaps some of the songs I wanted to, I was really surprised they didn't play Interstate 5. I was really surprised that they didn't play Dalliance or Flying Saucer. But on the other hand, they played 22 other songs that were absolutely fantastic. This also got a release at the time as a CD album. Here it is, which I don't mind buying because I was at the show. And also it later got a release for one of the record store days as a live album, plugged in The Wedding Present, which features 10 songs from the set. Including the first time that Après Ski, the Cinerama song, was released as a Wedding Present track. And I think this is out of sequence to the show as well, which makes it an awkward listen because the set list does not look like that at all. But this is, again, a live album. And live albums are, that was the first official live album by The Wedding Present. They released a number of live tapes, but it was the first live album that had been released. So perhaps you might want to get the CD, or if you want to get the one with the extra track, get the DVD of that. There was a couple of other releases. The first one being many years later, actually. The band released a 10-inch single of the Hugh Stevens sessions. 2006, after the Take Fountain tour, the band recorded 4 cover versions for Hugh Stevens on, I think, BBC Radio. So a cover of Step Inside Love, Loving You is Easy Cause You're Beautiful, Our Lips Are Sealed, and Take That Back for Good. Following up the trend of quirky cover versions, that's, very good and very interesting. Step Inside Love is, I think it's a Beatles song actually, which was written for Cilla Black of all people. But they all sound excellent. 10-inch versions, by the way, do come with a 4-track CD single. So here it is, by the way. The last release from the Take Fountain era came out in early 2007. And very much following up the same kind of brutalist approach. It is the 6-disc Peel Sessions box set. This features all the studio Peel sessions. There's about 14 or 15 of them each one with about 4 songs in, plus 3 full-length live shows from 1986 all the way through to 2004. The very last Peel session, which features songs from Take Fountain, such as Ringway To Seatac and Queen Anne, as well as Shivers, that B-side, Blue Eyes, and a cover version of the Rolling Stones, White Horses. This was deleted on the day or the week that it came out because the record company went out of business and it's not been repressed. But you should be able to pick up a copy of this. And this, by the way, is a fantastic box set. You can normally pick up one of these for about £30, which is not far off what it was when it originally came out. That brings Take Fountain, one of my favourite albums of all time, to a close. It's probably my favourite wedding present album. It's a fabulous concept album, written from an adult perspective about relationships, failure, dreams, and success. And it's an album that I listened to a lot in 2006 and 2007 when the relationship that I was in ground to a terrible, terrible halt. It's a wonderful record. I recommend it highly to anybody. If you've ever had feelings for anything, even if it's just feelings for a cat, and you like loud music with guitars in, do give Take Fountain a call. If you want to get the vinyl edition, it was released 2015 for Record Store Day, I think. This version is the double album, and it features the 6 B-sides on there as well. So if you're a vinyl fiend, this is the version to get. Okay, thank you very much. Take care of yourselves. See you all soon. Bye.